excited about that. And then we're going to be going back to our discussions about voice. I've tried to find a way to sum up that project in like one sentence, and I think I hit the nail on the head, but I'm looking to get also the community to help formulate the meaning of what voice is, so that people who aren't into blockchain and EOSIO or even EOS, to allow them to understand it in a very succinct nutshell. And then I'm going to be talking about my progress in the Everything EOS development series. I think some people have been asking what I've been up to there. So obviously it's Saturday, so I'm here at my normal spot studying, but I thought today it would be a good idea to kind of break that cycle and do a video with you guys. And then I want to finish up hopefully the video with a price community sentiment discussion and things I'm doing, like personally, things I'm looking at doing or I'm strategically doing as we speak. So that should be fun. And then obviously the EOS Telegram channels, the Gang, Phoenix, the EOS main channel, as well as the Everything EOS channel, like to peer in there and see what people are talking about and just converse with you guys. So without further ado, why don't we get started with shout outs. I want to do a shout out to everybody in the Gang community, obviously, everything EOS, who have been very helpful in helping me progress, as kind of a developer, an aspiring developer. Definitely don't do it on a daily basis, but it's given me enough knowledge to understand the components that go into developing an app. And hopefully, if I'm interested in that at some point, maybe taking it to that next level. So in terms of the specific people I want to give shout outs to, obviously we have the normal, the usual suspects. We got the EOS Apologists, we got Crypto Feez, we got DAPP Stars, Enrique, we got Brandon from EOS San Francisco, I believe, who's put out some amazing content recently with his community, doing a lot of community outreach there. So that's been really exciting to see people kind of boots on the ground, helping other people understand what this technology is about. So I'd like to see more of that, actually. I'm surprised we haven't, or maybe it's just we're not aware of all those people doing those types of talks. So I don't know, what do you guys think about that? Do you guys think our level of involvement within the communities is at a good level, or do we think we need to amp it up? I've kind of talked to Crypto Feez and others and tried to hint that maybe we could do a little bit more in that regard. So I don't know. I got some ideas I'd like to share with you guys on that front. So with that said, obviously let's go to the recent news we had from Block 1. So let me see if I can do this. There we go. Oh, that's not it. Let's try that again. There we go. That's a little better. All right. So we had EOSIO version 1.8 stable release of consensus protocol upgrade features. And so they put out this article, but in a nutshell, I guess what I wanted to, because we don't need to go through all the details of it, I don't think. What is important to know here is, and what's up, Sonata? How you doing? Thanks for tuning in. I wanted to do more of just a really quick point on why 1.8 release candidate and hopefully the transition to mainnet is so significant. And in a nutshell, why it's so significant, guys, is what you have to understand is that today it's very difficult for dApps to pay for users' resources. So to get them on the network, to get users to use these applications, normally that process is done from the user end today. But where we're going, we could see that evolve to more of a natural way in which the developers themselves or the companies that are launching these applications, they're going to be the ones that are able to pay to onboard those users. And the reason why that's so significant is obviously you want to have the the barriers to adoption or trying a new technology as low as possible. And so obviously paying for users to get onboarded on the network and to eliminate all the headaches with that, maybe make it a 2 or 3 step process or maybe a one-click process is just going to make things go so much easier. And so that's why the 1.8 release candidate is so significant, I think, from just a community or user adoption perspective for all these DAPPs. So what's going on, Zulu? What's happening? I think I met Zulu in DC Friday and Saturday at that event, at a magical event, and got an opportunity to chat with him. So thanks for tuning in, and if you have questions as we go along today, definitely throw them in the chat. That's what this is about. I love doing these. I'm not a blog producer or anything. I'm just an enthusiast. So I like helping other blog producers and giving them love when they need it. So it was definitely an awesome time, and I'm hoping that we as the community can also organize those. And in fact, that's one of my topics today. I hope we can get to. But yeah, thanks for coming in. So that's why the 1.8 release candidate is really important, I think. And unlike other upgrades or updates from B1 and more of the core development community that's releasing all these codes, this one, I think it from what I understand, it's going to require more coordination from the current block producers. So there is more of testing and coordination involved to make this transition happen onto the mainnet. And so we're going to probably expect to see more time that's needed. Even though the release candidate has come out now, we may not actually see a full transition for another couple months, I was told. So we're going to have to keep monitoring that. But the significance of it, obviously, is, and I kind of hinted at it with the giving the developers the ability to obviously create or pay for the resources for users. But the other significance being that something like voice.com, which has been a project a lot of us have followed, that would be a core example of where this would be used. So with voice, obviously, millions of users very easily, you could see that, especially with strategic partnerships that haven't been announced yet, but allegedly many expect. That would be a use case for that type of feature where you have a company like Block.one pay for those resources to onboard those users. So 1.8 is a very critical part of that. It's a critical milestone to getting those types of applications on the mainnet. So I hope that everybody, in a nutshell, understands that. There's a lot more to it, but it's really, I don't think, in my opinion, necessary for us to get into that realm of detail. What's up, Mr. Helm? How you doing? So we just went over the EOS 1.0 release candidate, the significance of that. And if you guys have other thoughts on that, definitely leave them in the chat window so we can make sure we cover all the critical points. But I think that's the main one that I think we within the community, within this more active community within EOS need to understand. That's what I got out of it. So with that said, I want to go to Dan Larimer's recent governance articles in which he talked about decentralizing governance. And if you guys have been around the Telegram this week and even leading up to this week, you've seen a lot of talk about, I guess, the impression of centralization or some of the governance challenges that are inherent with delegated proof of stake systems, but other systems as well. So it's not just unique to delegated proof of stake systems. Any system that relies on one type of criteria, it could be argued, suffers in some way or could suffer from the control by a group of producers or a community, a smaller community that's now been imposing their power on the larger community. And so I want to go to that article, guys, to share that with you guys and also get your thoughts on what you think about this. So So let's go to that real fast. Gonna scan here. So this is Dan's article titled Decentralizing Governance. This actually came out very recently. I think it was maybe yesterday. And so it actually starts out with a logo kind of like the Olympics, where you see, weightlifting and cycling and pole vaulting and archery. And I don't know what that other one is, but pretty interesting stuff. But he goes on to talk about, some of the historical attempts at governance, and why currently and even in the past a lot of those have failed. And what it comes down to in this article, without reading the whole thing literally verbatim, is the balance between minority groups and majority groups, and also trying to keep a even field level of play, to have multiple points of support between these groups, and the creation of negative feedback loops when it's required to restore that balance between them. And so what you're seeing right now in the network, and it's not specific to something like East versus West, or North versus South, right? Or Chinese versus Americans, in my opinion. It's more just how do you make a system that, if you're going to scale it and it's going to go around the world, how do you make it so that the people, even in the minority regions of your network, feel like they're heard, right, and respected, and their voice is acknowledged? And so right now in the EOS mainnet network and Bitcoin and Ethereum networks, you see that there's a centralization of power on those block producers. So Dan, I think, is attempting to provide some thought-provoking ideas on this topic for us to take a look at. So let's kind of go over those guys. And you can see, definitely rocking the gang chain today. So I'm out here, kind of uniquely dialed in on that one. And I'm looking to see if other people have actually gone out and purchased their, what's up, Eddie? Gone out and purchased their chain. I left a link in the gang chat for those that were interested in that. So I don't make any money on that. It's pretty much just a link that this 3D company I purchased mine from. I left a public link for others who might want something like that. It was pretty pricey, so I'm not going to lie about that. But I was telling Rezi that if we as a community wanted those and we wanted to produce more of them, maybe it's a good opportunity for us to get with like a shop that does more like molding metal products, who could probably make it for us a lot cheaper. Because these, the way they're made right now, it's more of like a 3D type process. So they go out, I make the model in 3D, and then they're printing the model out in 3D. So you can imagine it's pretty pricey to get one of these done like that. But my argument was, with the chain I gave to, like, Feez has a model like this, but he has it in, I think he has it like in a composite material I gave him. You can arguably take that model and go to like a machine shop and have them basically create a mold out of that, and then melt in metal. So you can have your design a lot cheaper than probably what it costs me. So I gave him that. I have a few more if people want to do that. And I also have links for you to print your own if you want to just have your own. So that might be a way to do it. But I thought that was just like a gift. It's not trying to make really any money on it. It's just a thing that people in the gang or whoever is affiliated with this community can sport, when they go out. And so it kind of starts some interesting conversations, because it's not a typical piece you see, right? It's not often you see someone that rocks a chain like that. So it's either like they're, I don't know, you can do your own imagination on the type of conversations that you have. Here, obviously, locally, crypto isn't as strong, but certainly in other areas you see people interested in something like that. So if you guys have an interest in that, definitely be a part of the gang. Check out the links and use them. And if you have a better platform that can print it cheaper, let us know so we can share that with others. But going back to the article on what Dan was talking about here, so he goes on to talk about this level playing field and making sure that that is balanced basically within the community between the minority and majority users. And really what it comes down to is the ability for small and large groups to defend their interests, be able to defend themselves right against other rules. So if you impose a rule on a community, or if a rule is imposed in the community, there needs to be some ability for those who maybe don't want to partake in that to maybe opt out of it, right, and defend their interests. And the problem right now is that we have a system that essentially cuts people off when they don't agree with something, which you can't really build a system on that. And Sonata makes a great point with this dilemma, this 80-20 dilemma, which is also highlighted in the article, which we'll get into. But you need to have the checks and balances to allow those to defend themselves and opt out of it and come up with different solutions. So he goes on to say there are entire classes of social coordination problems where it is the benefit of the individual to act in ways that harm the community. So for example, we all benefit by having a market with many choices for food. However, if one party is able to sell food at prices below all other parties' ability to make a profit, then that one party will end up with natural monopoly. And so you're actually seeing this in society right now. It's actually kind of sad, but you saw it with the Walmart model early on, right? And they dominated the market, and a lot of these things, they actually set the prices for the suppliers that opted to participate in this. And those that elected not to participate in the Walmart model, the small retail manufacturing shops were basically out of business because Walmart was able to leverage their quantities and sales volume, right? They were able to leverage that scale and take people out. So you're seeing the same thing with Amazon. And so really the challenge is how do you maintain that opportunity for new incumbents, right, to provide their services, products, and solutions. So that's a prime example of that for example, selling food. That's a really critical one that you're seeing right now is somewhat of a natural monopoly. You're also seeing it with companies like Monsanto, which have a huge control on the market of food and the way it's produced. So naturally, he says, it is in everyone's interest to ensure that there are many competing food providers regardless of the difference in price. The number of providers should be large enough that they cannot effectively collude and all members of society can find someone from whom to buy food from. And so he goes on to say, if obviously that user or the individual always chooses the cheapest provider, then the other providers will go out of business and everyone becomes enslaved. And I think what he's doing here is he's making a parallel to the, I don't think he's doing this is my interpretation, but I think he's drawing a comparison or a parallel with the EOS mainnet. And so if you have presumably producers that they may not offer a reward to people who vote in some way. Maybe they have other features. Maybe it's because they're decentralized. They're another provider, right? They're another source of truth. Then ultimately they go out of business. So this is not good for this type of a system. And pretty much the community falls apart, right? So what is the situation we have? Well, he comes to say that we now have come to a situation where we have proven that communities need rules, and these rules necessarily sacrifice some individual freedom to prevent an outcome of losing all individual freedom. This leaves us with the challenge of deciding what these rules are and preventing the system from being captured for private profit. Like the provision of food, society needs assurances that government is decentralized and not captured by a minority. So what this is a contrast between the law of the jungle, where might makes right, basically forcing and imposing rules on others and controlling it, and basically a peace treaty, right? And defines rights and dispute resolution. And so going on to talk about checks and balances and why democracy has failed. Well, let's talk about that a little bit more. Why, why has it failed, guys? I mean, what are some of your thoughts on why it's failed? You can look at a nutshell of, right now we have a system where it's mostly popularity, looks, right? And propaganda, you could argue. So it's not really based on actual skill sets to improve the lives of others. It is really based on looks, propaganda, sentiment, and the manipulation of people's behaviors. And so where he's proposing to go is really an evolution on decentralization and enter the model of having thousands of competitions so that you have a diverse group of people to make decisions. And so this was a little bit weird, to be honest with you, when I first heard it. I'm going to be quite candid with you guys. I didn't quite appreciate it as much as possible, but as I thought about it more, it made more sense. And his emphasis that, in theory, you can't really have one minority group of people in the world win all 1,000 competitions, say, if that's what the number was. So imagine you have the best archery person, right? You have the best runner. You have all these things that people can compete in and that are quantified. And presumably, people can train to win these competitions. Now, I did have an interesting question from someone in the Telegrams that asked, well, why would the fastest runner or why would the best archery person be interested in EOS? And the answer is they wouldn't. So I don't think the intent is to get the best people per se to participate in this. It's saying if you want to be a part of the governance, you can compete with others, and if you train enough and you're dedicated enough, you probably have a good shot of winning this competition amongst those other people and throwing weight into the governance process within EOSIO, or EOS, I'm sorry. So I'd like to know what you guys think about that. Do you think this is a sustainable model? Do you think you'd like to see something more based on the skill set of the network itself? I think having something like this as kind of a second layer of governance, so you have your block producers that are elected by this 1,000 person group, right? This elite group that competes all the time with people all around the world. One thing though I did, and I wanted to throw this back at the community, especially like Sonata who mentioned this 80-20 rule. If you have a community like this, let's say you have 1,000 people competing, or not 1,000 people competing, but let's say you have 1,000 people that are winners in these competitions and they make up this governance on the network, then how do you ensure that, let's say, how do you ensure that a group or minority around the world doesn't pay like a mercenary group to come in and train and become better and win the competitions for the benefit of driving a decision by that minority group, right? So I could see a situation where you have mercenaries that start to form because of maybe this approach to governance. So you imagine you have these thousands of competitions and you might have a group out there with millions of dollars and they decide that, they can't win all 1,000 games, but they can pay, they can pay $50,000 to the best athlete to compete on their behalf. And that athlete then would agree to vote in their favor. So I think that's the one flaw I didn't ask Larimer about yet, but I want to know if you guys think that's a valid concern. I think it is, because I could see that being definitely co-opted. Now, having said that, it is more resilient to something like that because even if you have a system like that, you still have the chance for someone else to train, compete, and basically beat out that person. The other thing is, he mentioned in the article that it's limited, so it's a limited term. So even if someone pays somebody off, that term is limited. Presumably with thousands of competitions, you'd have to pay off all those people to have a big stake in the network. So there is some promise to that. But I'd really like to hear what you guys think. Have you guys taken a look at that article? I'd like to know. So I will post the article in the Telegram chats for those that are interested. And I do have a screen share I wanted to put up, but for some reason my screen on this OBS Studio version I have, for some reason, it's the trippiest thing, but it like, I don't know, it's not like a clean view. For some reason it glitches with the article, the browser view. So I'm gonna have to go back and figure out how to fix that. But in the meantime, you guys are stuck with both the chat window and my view here. Let's go to the Telegram chats while I have a minute, and then we'll get back into the next topic. And it's doing it there too. Jeez. Okay. Transition back. I'm not sure why it does that. So if you guys know why it does that, let me know. Definitely not a super expert in these things, but certainly looking to learn. But in the, let's see what's going on here. Oh, the other big thing we had is the discussion on the, we had the discussion on privacy and POS reportedly or allegedly having their first transaction on the Jungle testnet. So work is being done. I think it was the first demonstration of a ring signature type transaction. There was some questions about how much RAM that consumed. So you could actually be looking, guys, at another driver for RAM, because this RAM, you know, having a private transaction on the network actually consumes RAM. It takes some amount of RAM. And so you could see another demand source for RAM. I thought that was pretty interesting. I mean, there's a lot of questions about it, and from the article I read, it sounded like Rob BR, Everything EOS, you know, obviously our Cyberglass team over there, is going to be doing a more in-depth discussion on this topic. So maybe tomorrow we'll hear more about it, because I know that tomorrow, I think both him and Zach are doing their weekly Everything EOS series talks. So definitely check out that, guys. It's probably one of the best shows for EOS, I would say. And definitely going to have to see what he shares on that. I'm going to go to the chat real quick and see some of the comments we have here. Sonata says, two most important factors to keep a group of size together is 1, an informed population, broad education, compassion for things besides themselves, and 2, term limits on every position of power. And Mr. Holmes says, you make good points. I believe trying to address every problem with a blanket fix is problematic. I'd like to know, yeah, I mean, Sonata, I agree with you on that. And I think education is super key. And I think we do have some definite cultural differences with our friends maybe to the east and other places. I mean, it's just inherent, right? I mean, there's cultural differences even in the gang and even in this community right now, at this forum we have. But I think we can all agree that, at least here, you know, I have definitely a concern for centralization. I'm willing to pay a little premium for having decentralization over centralization. Do most people in the community share that sentiment? Probably not. The holders, and I think, you know, some educational challenges there, and also the perception and the threshold of how you define decentralization. For some people, they're going to say, well, decentralization to me means that I can have block producers in one region. I'm okay with that, but as long as it's not under the control of one person or group. And that's, I've heard a lot of that, but I don't know if I buy that, because we've seen a lot of sock puppet type setups and groups that on the surface look decentralized, but ultimately it's the same group in charge, and that's not really going to meet the requirements for people feeling comfortable to deploy their applications on this network. It's always going to be the sticking point, in my opinion. It's always going to be used by those within Ethereum, for example, to laugh at what's being built on EOS. And that's not a salt in the wound for us in the community. It's just the reality. And so there really needs to be a more serious look by people participating in that. People, both the voters and others who are participating in that, because in theory they're really putting the network at a huge risk. I've already seen, and this is not FUD, but I've already seen a lot of people that have reduced their holdings in EOS because of that concern. And I know a lot of people don't like to hear that, but that's the truth. So definitely kind of a serious topic there, guys. So again, I like Dan Larimer's concept on paper with the competition, the 1,000 competitions. I think the main challenge is how do you make sure that can't be gamed? Because again, you have a lot of these outfits, they're sophisticated and they can be manipulative, and I could see them paying people off to win these competitions and then just vote on their behalf. So it really is going to take the counter community or organic organization by people everywhere to actually want to participate in this. Otherwise, you have the same problem. You still have the 80-20 rule, which Sonata mentioned, because again, how do you guarantee that people will be interested in competing, right, is the other challenge. It's one thing to have a game and a challenge. It's another to say that people will show up for it. And the only reason why I mention that is, another reason why I mention that is, I hold merely monthly events, bi-monthly events in Phoenix for EOS. And it's amazing to have maybe even a handful of people show up for these events. Some of them, quite knowledgeable about the technology, but for one reason or another, they have other things to do. And I get it, But I'm saying that even showing up is a challenge sometimes. Showing up to a hackathon, for example, in San Francisco, right? Going to that event, going to the Block 1 event in DC. Is it important for most people? Apparently it wasn't important enough that they want to show up for it. For me, it was important, so I went, right? Some people, they couldn't for various reasons, and I'm not judging those people. I'm just saying there are some people I know that weren't in a position to go. They had the money to go, for example, but they just didn't want to go, right? Or for whatever reason. So it's you gotta kind of look at things. And so even though, again, Dan has this perception that, and I think it is a good start to the ideas, I think it could go really astray because you're counting on people showing up, is my point. And if you don't have people showing up, that's not going to turn out very good. So Bit and Motor asks, should Block 1 just vote for the good block producers already? I think that even the perception of what good is can be a challenge. It could also be it could be a political minefield. You also have to keep in mind the regulatory environment we are in. So in the United States, there's a lot of close look right now on the top chains that make up cryptocurrencies. If Block 1 decides to come out and vote or do anything without the assurance that the network is decentralized, that is nuclear for this chain and not in a good way. So I agree with Mr. Helm there that we really should probably try to avoid that. And he also mentions with 1% inflation going to the top, over time the problem will snowball. I agree with that. And so that's why I'm having this conversation with you guys. If we're going to go in that direction where we're going to have competitions, it's really going to count on you guys to show up and compete for a system like that. The other challenge I do have with this type of a system is whether or not the current block producers would actually approve it. So just because we have a good idea, and if it improves the ability to decentralize the network, that doesn't necessarily guarantee that people within the power right now are going to adopt it. And so you really have to wonder how we're going to get there. I would imagine that maybe with the upgrade of 1.8 or maybe the 2.0, you have an opportunity there where those that are qualified to do that very technical work and that coordination could support a change like that in the best interests of all holders. Do I think that'll happen? What are the chances of that happening? I don't really know. But we got to start thinking like that, because if we don't, again, even though we're at the top right now, the perception by most outside of EOS is centralization. And logically, you could see it going there if something isn't done. So Sonata says, does anyone else think that the standby BPs may be racing to stand up a new 1.8 mainnet chain without involving the present top 21? I think that's entirely possible. And the reason why I mention that, or I guess I'm wondering, and I don't have enough knowledge in this area or domain to really be sure about this, but you know, if you go back to when this whole thing started to get underway, the spin up of the mainnet, okay, which was a groundbreaking event for us in the community. It was block producers that aren't even in the top 21 right now. These were the OGs, the influential, the real core tech there group. And I know that, you know, we all know them for those that were around. You know, it was folks like Crypto Lions. You had EOS Canada, EOS Tribe. You had a lot of these block producers that were involved in this effort. And where are they now, you know? So Gray Mass, another one, right? So you have all these groups that don't get much love. And it's going to be really interesting to see if the top 21 today, a lot of them being exchanges, right, have even the technical competence to pull off basically what is a fork. So it'll be interesting. The great thing about it, guys, is, you know, as a community, if something like that were to happen, there's nothing really that we lose. If there's a better system that comes out, we need to be on board to recognize that it's a better system and support it, right? Because the current system, while it's good in the short term and rewarding those that do this weird game, it's not really sustainable from an economic standpoint, not very sustainable. And so that's really what we need to, you know, take seriously here. So Mr. Helm says the best solution is synergistic. Nina Mortar says I'm going to diversify in Telos. You know, the great thing is for those that held EOS is you have access to all these. So there's not even a reason to speculate on any of these things. Claim your drops, right, or your opportunities on these, and you can evaluate them all in real time and not run the risk of losing out on one or the other. So that'd be my recommendation personally, allegedly, but that's not investment advice. So you guys do what's best for you guys. But so let's see here. So we talked about Dan's concept and kind of my thinking with it. Again, I'd like to know if you guys agree. Can it be gamed? How do we improve it? You know, let's not just poke holes in his ideas. How do we improve something like that? How would you make it so that, you know, a BP or someone can't game the system, right? Can't pay somebody off to compete. I'm not sure you can, but I'd like to hear what you guys think about that. Maybe, well, he does mention later in the article the ability to have several different systems running in parallel. I wonder though, like, from a performance standpoint, how you do something like that. One of the ideas I had was maybe, and I'm not sure if you could even do this, but it had to do with using proof of location for users and BPs, right, where they would be located. So if you use, you could have these games that he talks about. Maybe part of the game, though, is the performance itself of the response time, right, between a user and a BP. So presumably, BPs who are closer logistically to a user might be able to provide a faster response, a quicker response, right? Maybe you can quantify these things. So you end up maybe with an advantage over other BPs that may be located in another region. And so I'm wondering if you could actually use a model like that to start to provide incentives for BPs to locate at least in different jurisdictions. Because if you have BPs that are in one region, but you have users that are all the way on another region, and let's say you have a network, or not a network, let's say you have an application like Voice, which is global. Now you have the ability to have true competition, because if you have users that are distributed fairly proportional to east, west, north, south, everywhere, right? You can actually start to quantify the performance of those VPs against the users in those networks. And then you can have a way to divvy up the amount of VPs around the world based on the geography of the world, and the VPs that provide the best performance localized to that region could have some weight in the network. So maybe you integrate a feature like that as well, because that can't be as easily gamed. It would take some requirements, for example, someone from the west to go to the east, someone from the east to go to the west. So I really like an idea like that. I mean, I like this game idea, but I really like something that is going to take a little bit more of a coordinated effort, and also maybe involve the element of time, so that a user that stakes to this type of network and in competition in a region, their weight increases maybe over time because they stake so long, or maybe they're going to commit to the network for 1 or 2 years. I think a system like that is much more resilient to gamification versus something like what's been discussed, at least thus far. Want to say shout out to 12. Thanks for joining us. He says, "What's up, Phoenix?" I am here in Phoenix. It is super hot, but I'm here chilling with you guys, talking about EOS Governance. It's like 95 degrees, 100 degrees outside here. So obviously myself went outside early in the morning, got my run in, did some fasting, did some eating, and now I'm just getting ready to do some studying actually. But I wanted to get this video out to you guys and share my thoughts on some of the recent happenings within EOS. So thanks for joining us. Mr. Holmes says, the best ideas by the smartest people frequently have a way of becoming corrupted. I think that is true. I think there are opportunities though for checks and balances. And maybe by having, what's up, Crypto Pickle? By having thousands of methods, so maybe you have, a non-technical competitions, but this game idea that Larimer has. Then you have geolocation games, and you have all these different types of games. Maybe by doing something like that, you're able to address these issues. It's not a foolproof way, but it's definitely better than what's available today. So, Rebel Jade, what's happening? So that's the rant, I think, for governance and the challenges with it. I don't think it's unique to EOS. I think all chains at some point are going to have to deal with it. Even Bitcoin, as granddaddy as it is, and as much as people think it is resilient to all these things, if you actually look at the gist of where these nodes, these producing nodes are running and where the mining power is, it is in China. So we have the same challenge there as we do with EOS. One is a little bit more obvious maybe than the others in some respects, and it's just something that we're going to have to figure out. So CryptoPickle says he's always looking to collab with the EOS fam. Definitely looking forward to that. So if you have ideas, this is a good opportunity to do it. I'm looking to hopefully do more of these on a regular basis. It's just sometimes so challenging to get everything set up, get organized, and but I'm getting better at it. Definitely, I'm getting better at it. So every week thus far for the past 2 months, I've actually been coming out and doing the Everything EOS development series on my own, looking for study buddies. But you know, it's cool solo too. I'm not tripping. I could do it solo. So that's been coming along really well. It is getting easier with things like EOS Studio, which I've been also picking up. So last main topic I want to cover today is the voice project. And you know, one of the challenges I had, one of the things I challenged myself with this week was trying to come up with a one sentence verbiage on describing what voice is to someone who doesn't know about voice, but maybe knows about blockchain, right? Maybe knows about Bitcoin. So what I did is, you know, I started to think through like how I would describe this. And what I came up with was summed up in a sentence to those that are somewhat Bitcoin literate. Voice is essentially crypto mining for attention with built-in transparency and auditability. So I'd like to know what you guys think about that. It is crypto mining for attention. That's really what it comes down to. EOS Apologists, what's happening? I've been waiting for you to join these live streams. It's nice to see you on here. But what do you guys think about, you know, crypto mining for attention? Does that resonate with you? Does that make sense? I'm curious. I think it actually hits the nail on the head. If you think about it, you're producing content and information, and the attention and energy, or I would say producing content and information, and the attention is all about human energy. And one of the things that is very key to anybody around the world, whether you're rich, poor, black, white, whatever you are, whatever gender you are, right? One of the things we have in common is that we all have the commodity, the limited commodity of time. So it doesn't matter how much money you have, it doesn't matter where you are in the world, unless the theory of relativity, unless these concepts that we have changed and we can time travel, which is a woo-woo topic that is very interesting. But unless you can change all that stuff, it's really hard to get around the fact that time being very limited. So it actually is an interesting commodity to reference in a economy, right? It's a commodity of reference in an economy. So voice is actually trying to do that. The formulation of ideas is a form of work, and certainly sharing those ideas or inspiring others to refine them has value. It captures their attention and thus time. And we just said time is a commodity for everybody around the world. So it is actually a genius concept when I started thinking about it more. And that's why I came out with that one sentence verbiage, which is crypto mining for attention or crypto mining for time. So that the fact that people have a limited time of attention, it is a quantifiable commodity that every human, whether rich or poor, shares commonly. And thus, participants in a project like Voice can provide the ability to show in real time the heartbeat of the globe in terms of collective sentiment, rather than a delusion of sentiment portrayed by mainstream media. So that's what I came up with, guys. What do you guys think about that? Do you guys think that hits the nail on the head? How can we improve that? Because at some point, when it actually goes and gets deployed, you're going to need to be able to explain this in a way. And the best way I can explain it is you're mining for attention, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Sonata says, Bytemaster says his goal for end users to not even realize the voice is running above a blockchain. And yes, that's true. So maybe in the context of mining, we say it's like mining for gold, but instead of mining for gold, you're mining time, right? And time's very valuable. So I think it makes complete sense, but I'd love to know what you guys think about that. So last topic here is my Everything EOS Dev series, my progress and story. So thus far, what I've done is understood going through Peter Kay's tutorials. I think I'm like halfway through. Start to understand the basis for accounts, contracts, permissions, and kind of just using the studio dev environment. It's pretty easy for those that don't have a lot of experience. I recommend you guys try that out. Definitely something that can be done very quickly. And right now what I'm doing is spending more time refining the front end work for the application. So skills like React, JavaScript, API coding to make calls between the front end of the application and back end, and then local storage technologies like Redux, and then manipulating the multi-index tables, which is just basically a nerdy way of saying that's the way the blockchain stores data. So that's what I've been learning thus far. It's not something I've been able to do every week, but almost every week. I've been trying to be pretty consistent about it, and I'm getting to the point where at least I understand the building blocks of developing an application. So for those that are interested, definitely check out the Everything EOS development series. You can find that on Udemy, and I know they were handing out free codes to actually do that. Like if you have an EOS account and you show them that, there's a process where you can get it basically for free. So you don't even have to pay any money to learn this stuff, and it's invaluable, I think, as a skill set. And Sonatus hits the nail on the head. He says great apps is the key, everything else is secondary. And the best thing that you could do, a lot of people have asked, and this is going to get into my next topic, a lot of people have asked, well, what can I do to improve my investments in cryptocurrencies? I would argue that the best investment you can make in cryptocurrencies is not even investing in cryptocurrencies. I mean, no, I should take that back. You should invest in cryptocurrencies, dollar cost average. That's what I've been doing. That's what people in my family have been doing. Getting out of debt, eating right, exercising right, getting spiritually awakened, okay, getting your rest in, and just, because you can't really help other people unless you're at a level where you can help yourself, right? And so part of that is having resiliency. It's developing a savings account, having lots of cash in there so that you can sustain yourself maybe for 2 or 3 years. If we go through another crypto winter, and let's say I'm going to spin out a DAPP for the community, or I'm going to work with others, I know I need to have 2 or 3 years of cash set aside. Not even crypto assets. I'm talking about just cash I can use where I don't need to worry and I don't need to burden those around me or my family to worry about me, right? I need to have enough cash to do it. So that's what I'm doing, guys. I recommend you guys do the same. But even in addition to saving cash and dollar cost averaging in cryptos, which I do about 25% in cryptos and about 25% cash savings right now, based on my take-home pay. The other thing you can do is invest in yourself. That's actually one of the best things you can do. If you have very little money to put into EOS or Bitcoin or Litecoin or whatever cryptos you enjoy investing in, one of the best things you can do is investing in yourself, because think about it. If you release a DAPP and it goes viral and it becomes very popular and you work with other people on it, the dividends, the amount of money you're going to get as a return on that, it's going to far outweigh the amount that you might invest in something like EOS. And it's not a knock against EOS. I'm just saying it's another form of investment. It's another form of capital. It's another form of value. And so those are the kinds of things I've been looking at as a opportunity cost. Do you invest in a house? Do you invest in traditional markets, or do you invest in yourself? Do you choose to eat the right foods? Do you choose to get up in the morning? Maybe you have to get up at 4 or 5 in the morning before the sun hits and becomes 100 degrees to get your run in, right? And those are the things I've been doing. I've been getting up early so I can exercise, so my mind and my mental functioning is the most optimal it can be, because I know that everybody in here in this, on this talk right now has a superpower. But it's up to us to kind of unleash that. And it takes effort. It takes effort every day to work on it, because it is a huge challenge to optimize your body. And especially with the little that we know about the things we ingest, a lot of chemicals in the food we eat. So the best thing I can tell you guys is don't sleep on that stuff. You know, it's not just about investments. It's not just about mooning. You got to invest in yourself as well. You got to love yourself. So I just like to leave you guys with that. Love you guys. Take care of yourselves, and stay focused. And don't be anxious about 20% moves, guys. I'm saying that as someone who's been in this since 2013, and I've seen a lot of moves, guys. You know, I remember when I invested in Bitcoin, $1,000, and Bitcoin ended up going down to, I think, $190. And most people can't take that pain. It's just way too difficult for them. And you know, you got to just hold dollar cost average, and you know, review your thesis about as to why you're supporting this this crypto movement, right? And the thesis is it's a truth system over what we have today. You look at what they're talking about doing with negative interest rates, with the quantitative easing, okay, moves like that. And you look at something like Bitcoin, you look at something like EOS, and we have the opportunity, guys, as a generation, really, as this younger generation, arguably. I mean, there are some older people in our group here, but you know, mostly it's people our generation and younger, and we have the opportunity. It's in our hands, but we got to work at it every day. So please join those groups, gain skills that can help accelerate this movement and help others understand it. Help others use wallets, because it might seem very basic to you. It might seem very simple to you. But believe it or not, that's a very special skill right now that a lot of people don't have. A lot of people, you know, I've met people who thought their crypto was gone because they couldn't figure out how to get access to their coins. And you got to help people like that, because the value of the network is derived from the network effect. And if we can't help our community, if we can't help people around us, we're not going to get the network effect. People are going to get frustrated and they're just going to leave. So you have to be able to help other people when they need help, and you got to be able to help yourself. So, you know, I talked about what I'm doing long-term, dollar cost averaging, about 25% crypto and US dollars for rainy day fund. And, you know, looking at 2 to 3 year horizon, because that's been our average over the past few years with crypto, is that we've seen, you know, 2 years of downtime. And so you can start planning effectively to break away and try something new. But you got to put yourself in that position. So right now you have an opportunity to do that, right? Definitely working out and eliminating all debt and eliminating useless items, which is overlooked. But if you're going to travel somewhere, you're going to go with another gang, and you're going to help them, you got to be in a position to do that. And a lot of, you know, sometimes what holds us down and prevents us from growing or from doing things or from taking risks is just baggage around us. So what I'm doing personally is I'm giving away a lot of stuff, or I'm throwing it away. And I want to get down to the point where I have, like, you know, maybe a couple suitcases where I'm ready to go wherever the opportunities are. And that's the best you can be, is to decentralize yourself and be free from a lot of obligations and things. That's just my opinion. Especially the old legacy system, which a lot of that stuff is useless and doesn't matter. So one of the things I've been toying with, guys, and I like to hear what you guys think, is this idea of more of a decentralized camp, or decentralized, like a Burning Man, I would say, but prior to Burning Man becoming so commercialized. But what I'd like to see is, I'd like to know if it's possible to, if others would be interested in creating more of like a crypto decentralized event where we prove as a community that we can spin up energy systems and water systems. And I don't know about food, because, you know, it would be more of a short-term thing, but maybe we could get there. You know, maybe if someone has land, we could help them maybe build it and use that as a model for applying to our own systems and things, right? I'm curious if you guys would be interested in that kind of idea. maybe somewhere like in Arizona or Vegas or somewhere else. It doesn't need to be there. I'm actually willing to go anywhere to try this out, but what is important is being around people who show up and who are committed to it. So I would imagine, though, that the very first aspects of that would be specialists who have a specific skill that we're looking to address. And maybe it just starts out with a list of what you can do for a project like that. But I would imagine you'd want things like water, power, food, maybe creating guilds and people who have an interest in governance, because you need to have ground rules. So that's something else to consider, and let me know what you guys think about that. So with that said, I'm going to look at the comments here. EOS Apologist, again, thanks for coming. He says, you're 100% right. It is always best to have a long-term perspective, especially when it comes to crypto. And no doubt that is true. If you guys have been here, like I said, for years, been here for over 6 years, definitely learn that. Patience is good. That's something I have learned over the past few years is patience with systems, patience with myself, patience with others around me, and appreciating it, because there's strength in everything, strength in every experience you're going to have. And you got to learn to I think, understand that a little bit more. So with that said, thanks for tuning in, guys. I really appreciate you all coming out. Wong Oliver wants to shout out the EOS Handbook, which is a good way for new users to learn about wallets, and I'd agree. So definitely check that out, guys. I know there's some links that are in the Gang Telegram channel, and you can also find it in other sources as well. But if you guys have interest in learning about that, everything from creating your wallet to multi-sig features, that is a very good resource to check out. So with that said, guys, we've been on for a little bit over an hour. I want to thank you guys for tuning into my channel. If you like the content, consider hitting that like button and consider subscribing if you haven't already. Share this content with your family and friends. And yeah, hope everybody's having a fabulous Saturday. Peace out, and until next time, this is Phoenix signing